Ladies and gentlemen, Said David Farman, Los Angeles Alchemy event. We have a great guest today. We are live. Is December 22nd, year of 12. Yesterday was Day of Destiny. Today is the Day of Revelation. So we're talking with Italy, Dr. Marek Roland, and he's a great researcher in sound technology and cancer research and different other sciences. Welcome, Dr. Roland. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Thank you for inviting me to participate in your show.
Glad to have you. Want to start with your personal education and life and about yourself. And could we ask you please tell us more about yourself, your education, your background?
I did my master's degree in physics in 1978 at University, Nicolaus Copernicus University in Poland. And then I did my PhD in physics in 1987 in Canada. And my specialty is mainly in sound, audio, and biophysics as well. I do a lot of work related to life phenomenon, degenerative disorders, diet, acoustics, related to hearing, related to speech, and so on. So those are my main areas of interest and research in the last 30 years or 30 years.
How did you get involved with cancer research?
Well, my parents were medical doctors, so is my sister and my brother. So I was always interested in, medical topics because parents talk a lot about it. I have heard about a lot of medical issues at home and, among friends. Many of our friends were medical doctors, so therefore, since I was a very young child, I was exposed and immersed in the medicine and medical research and medical issues.
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And what got me very interested in cancer, I basically was initially very interested in life phenomena, how to explain life, how to explain aging process, and then I decided to try to explain cancer because cancer was such an enigma for centuries or millennia, really. And nobody really knew exactly what cancer is, what are the causes of cancer, and so on. So I wanted to have some kind of unified theory, how cancer is formed and what is cancer, and so on. And I was able to succeed about 7 years ago.
You mentioned the cancer is caused by environment, stress. Can you remind us about those factors again?
Well, it turns out when I did my study and when I had interviews with many people around the world and reading various materials and research, my estimation was that cancer is probably in less than 5% of cases caused by genetics. But in 95% of cases is caused by diet, lifestyle, and the environment.
What's the number one in diet that kills us in cancer cases?
Well, I mean, one of the major mistakes people do, for example, is that they eat, don't drink enough water. Simple thing like drinking enough water already does a lot of damage in the organism. An adult person should drink probably close to 2 liters of fluids, and I see you are doing this right now. And a lot of people, people whom I know could drink like 2 glasses a day of fluids.
2 glasses or 8 glasses?
No, 2 glasses. Some people wrongly, because they don't have a thirst, they are not thirsty. They sometimes drink very little as 2 glasses, 3 glasses a day. But an adult person, and sometimes depending, of course, on work, climate, temperature, and so on. But a person should drink about 2 liters of fluid. So this is one of the major mistakes. And of course, it's important what kind of fluids you drink. I mean, it cannot be pop, something with toxic chemicals and sugar and so on. The best is green tea, water with organic lemon, or something like that. This kind of thing.
In America, people don't understand liter. How many glasses you would suggest? 2 liters.
Well, I mean, usually glass, average size of glass has from 200 to 250 milliliters. So from 8 to 10 glasses. Of fluid. Yes, yeah.
That's a lot of water for some people, because water becoming scarce and expensive. Even in city of Los Angeles, we cannot drink the tap water. It's toxic and full of lead. So what we got to do, buy the bottled water or purified water in a special spring water. Is expensive.
This is very sad situation. You see, because I mean, water once upon a time was free and freely accessible to many people. Right now, it's getting very precious resource and scarce, and often is polluted. I think there was some study by one of the filter manufacturers, and in many water supplies in US, there was between 1 to 7 or more, or 9 or more even pesticides or various chemicals in the lakes and rivers, which were used as a water reservoir for drinking water. So there is a big problem with that. That basically we have industries which are polluting a lot. We have as well people using cars, and with excessive power, and people use them excessively. I mean, basically average American, Canadian, and members of many other developed countries use technology and resources far greater than they should. They should limit the use of the resources of cars and so on. And I think eventually in the future we should switch into efficient electrical cars, small electrical cars, and as well use them people.
Exactly.
And you could have really great savings, because I mean, if you drive Hummer, for example, Hummer could burn in the city maybe 25 liters of gas. If you use electric car could use maybe between 1 or 2 liters of gas in the city, equivalent of that, So, for example, electrical cars have a lot of applications, and they eventually could clean up at least part of the environment associated with the fuel. And as you mentioned, lead in the LA is basically because the gasoline was leaded once upon a time, and there was lead in the gasoline, and there was a lot of that. All exhaust gases were basically settled underground and went to the drinking water and so on, and the soil. So there's probably pollution in quite many places with lead.
How does the mercury comes with the cancer? Mercury toxification, does it create cancer?
I mean, many heavy metals are toxic, and the mercury is one of the toxic metals, as well as lead and so on. I mean, those, if they don't necessarily cause cancer directly, some of them they could cause indirectly by suppressing immune system or function of certain systems in the organism.
Because most people have dental fillings that older generation like us, me, and yes. We have all our teeth filled with mercury, and this yes. A lot of people say that is causing different illnesses. Do Do you believe in that, or what should we do?
Well, I think you know, there is some degree of truth in that, because some of this lead which you have there, or mercury, is leaching to the body through the bone and through the mouth and so on. But if you have proper diet, you know, and if you don't drink sort of toxic things which dissolves those feelings and so on, I think the sort of toxicity would be there, but I think I would first take care of some other more toxic things, you know, like diet itself, or what you breathe, the air you breathe in, or water you drink, and so on. I wouldn't necessarily remove those feelings, because that would be a lot of work and, you know, unnecessary pain and
expenses,
you know, so
yeah.
So in a sense, basically, as I said, you could basically, through proper diet and lifestyle, you can offset that.
The GMO.
You can offset that.
May I ask you, the GMO food, like the modified corn or modified this and modified that, do you believe those are cancer causing?
Yes. I mean, there was definitely, I had that belief for many years. I mean, if you know, you have to know how the GMO organisms are formed. And I mean, the way they are made is such that very often they basically inject the genes and some various genes which don't belong to particular organisms into the genotype. And that could cause changes in structure, or formation of certain proteins or certain other things, and could synthesize certain components which could be toxic. And actual experiments, there was independent study recently done in France, and they were able to obtain, I think, GMO corn, which was not even sprayed with pesticides. It was just pure GMO corn. And they reported great increase in cancer rates, and as well shortened lifespan of rats. So definitely those organisms are very harmful, and the way they are made is very harmful and stupid. I think the GMO have probably good application for some industrial use, or for example for synthesis of things like you know, maybe certain medications, or for example, if you want to synthesize insulin and so on, you have to maybe inject certain genes, like they were injected into bacteria to synthesize. So for those kind of applications, yes, but not for food supply for animals or for humans. I mean, the use of GMOs for feed or for human consumption is totally wrong, because the genotype is far too complex to, you know, we know far too little, and we have too poor tools to basically screw with the genetic system right now. I mean, it's far too complex. We don't understand inner workings of it sufficiently. It's far too complex, and basically the whole notion, and as I said, the way they are made is unsafe. And then when they eventually make organisms like that, they clone them. You know, they clone them, and this is as well wrong, because, for example, you have the whole field of corn or some other crop, which is basically almost identical plant. So you lose as well biodiversity. It's sort of like if somebody would come up to you and they would say, okay, you are the best person living in LA, so we would find the best woman, and we would kill all the other people in LA, and we would just leave two of you, and we would populate with your copies entire LA. You know, that would be totally wrong.
Colonas. So they clone the same modified genes, yeah.
Yes, exactly, and you know, and as well they clone the same DNA. So So basically, you lose biodiversity this way, and that's very, very wrong.
I mean, the scientists who brought all these technologies to us, what were they thinking, and where their brain were, that they never looked into other?
Their brain was where the money was. Their brain was where the money was, and on top of that, you probably are seasoned enough in the field that you probably know the term scientific prostitution.
Exactly.
Like politicians prostitute themselves for money, so many scientists as well prostitute themselves for the money, and they would derive the results which money pays for.
Exactly.
So a lot of studies which are funded by some organizations are actually proving what the organizations want to prove.
And do you think
they are not objective?
Do you think they did that to destroy the population by GMO stuff?
Well, definitely, the fact that there are certain organizations like Illuminatis, for example, or Bilderbergers, who would like to control the world and build sort of world government and so on. And there's some information linked that basically they have planned to depopulate the Earth and reduce population to 10–20% by various means, by toxic foods, by vaccines, and many other things. Wars are expensive, and there is too much destruction of infrastructure. But if you kill just people, then there is very little collateral damage and very little loss of infrastructure. So, the easiest way is to kill them with chemical pollution or food or radiation or cancer.
What is your idea about polio vaccination? And Bill Gates and put all the Microsoft money into it, and or the government's doing a lot of polio vaccination for kids.
Well, some research indicates that many of those vaccines contain many toxic components, like mercury and so on, and some of them could contain as well some foreign pathogens, which could be dangerous. So in principle, vaccine, if properly made and pure, it could be helpful. However, it turns out that many vaccines are very dangerous because they have many impurities and they have toxic components in them. And on top of that, question is whether somebody is not on purpose injecting into them some chemicals, basically to spread certain diseases, certain disorders, and so on.
We live in a crazy world that politicians decide what we should eat, how we should live, how we should everything about our thinking, from daily life to GMO food. And so by going to mountains and drinking spring water or living out of cities, do you think somebody will avoid cancer and not getting cancer at all in his life?
Well, the way our bodies are built is that basically when you get to old age, and that old age could be 80, 90, 100, 110 years old, depending on your genotype and lifestyle, eventually you would get some kind of degenerative disorder, because we can delay that. So there is no, for example, reason for the disease to develop at the early age, like 20, 30, or 40, what we see now. But at the very old age, eventually you have to die of something. We are not programmed. Our genetic code and our structure of our body is not such that you could live indefinitely. You cannot live indefinitely. So our bodies are built in the best circumstances if you would have the best lifestyle, no genetic disorders, and so on, probably you could live 140, 150 years old. That's the maximum limit of our bodies, how our bodies are built. If we would modify the structure of our bodies, which maybe in the future would be possible, but with future technologies, we might extend that life and maybe live a couple of hundreds of years, you know, maybe even longer, you know. But at this moment, our bodies can probably withstand up to 140, 150 years. But as you know, majority of people would live only 70, 80 years old.
What do you think about leaving to space and other planets? People, we are living here, we getting older faster than somebody goes to space and come back in 6 months. Yeah.
You are talking about relativity theory, like Einstein and so on. Yes, no, you know, this is associated with actually slowing down of every process. I mean, when you have this sort of paradox of the twins, when one stays on Earth and the other travels and comes back and is younger, is basically what happens. The all processes during history slow down. So basically, he slows down aging because everything slows down. So instead, for example, of atoms or photons jumping this fast, they jump maybe this fast at certain part of the trip, you know, because of the acceleration. So therefore, what is happening? The whole clock, biological clocks start to run slower. It doesn't mean that this person would live longer per se, because if you would ask both of them write a certain number of texts, the one on Earth would write longer text than the other one coming from space, because he wouldn't have enough time to write it, you know, because the one on Earth would type like this, and the one in space at sometimes might type like this.
That's funny, huh? That's interesting. Okay. So by slowing down our biorhythm, you don't think we will live longer? Like, you know, slowing down our heart rates, meditation, or, you know?
Yes, you can slow down slow down heart rate and breathing, and the extension of life is usually accomplished by slowing down the cell divisions. So if you slow down the cell divisions in the organism, then you slow down the aging. But eventually you cannot eliminate totally the aging. Because as I mentioned to you, the way our organisms are built, they are built to eventually age and to die. It doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot build organisms which would live indefinitely. I mean, you know, in theory and in practice, you can build organisms which can live forever. You know, given the proper flow of entropy and energy and matter, you can build systems or organisms which can live forever. You know, I mean, you know, when...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
When you look at Gaia, I mean, if you look at the biosphere and you consider Gaia as a living organism, then basically Gaia is an organism which could live indefinitely. I mean, it's only limits to lifespan of Gaia. I mean, Gaia is already living for last 3.5 billion years, right? It's a constantly living organism. You know, first organisms were formed around 3.5 billion years ago. So Gaia is living for this long already. The bird is making. I have to put up with birds and dogs, as you see. Anyway,
yeah, I had the same scenario with Stephen D. Kelly yesterday. He has a cat and a bird, and
yes,
it was so funny.
So Gaia, if there would be a constant supply of light from sun, which
how much? This is very important for me. How much of a sunlight do we need to get every day outside? Because some of us, we are so busy, even myself, we don't get time to go out too much. We have to finish projects. We have to be inside on the computer, you know,
Well,
like yourself.
I suppose that probably, you know, it's interesting that actually it's not only sunlight, not only visible light, which is important to our organism, but there are some other wavelengths of radiation which are as well probably important to our health, and they are not visible. And very often in buildings they might be shielded. So probably spending on the outside like 1 or 2 hours a day would be advisable, even if it's cloudy.
If you don't get 1 hour a day light, what would happen to the body?
Well, I mean, body wouldn't deteriorate because we evolve. I mean, even if you would spend the entire time in the building, I mean, you know, your body is basically fed by the food, and you get the sunlight and energy and entropy from the sunlight in the food. You know, we are not plants. I mean, we can supply all necessary ingredients in food. Certain, as I mentioned, radiation, which could be beneficial, have some health benefits, could be when you walk on the outside, but you know, it's not as crucial.
So let me ask you a very important question. If the Earth changes and pole shift, which this Mayan stuff people were waiting for Mayan calendar be the end and pole shift and stuff, but pole shift is never goes with any calendar stuff. The pole shift every now and then in the Earth has destroyed many cultures as we look at the back in the history. So if people go underground and become cavers and to avoid, for example, solar max, to avoid pole shift or any other Earth changes, if they live underground for month and month or year, do you think they can survive without the sunlight underground? That's my question.
Yes, they would, if they would have proper supply of food, yes. If they would have proper supply of food, I mean, you know, good example is that, you know, you have many miners, or you have people spending time in prisons for, you know, decades, you know, with no sunlight, because they have rooms with no windows and so on. So
what is the number one food that will supply the sunlight deficiency?
Well, I mean, there is no single one food, but I mean, you know, many vegetables are good, many fruits are good. You know, there are some superfoods which contain many things, like, for example, egg yolk contains a lot of things, or certain type of fish could contain certain, or glands, something like spirulina, you know, contains many things, or milk.
Are you vegetarianism, or you support?
I am vegetarian, but I am not vegan. And I think in theory my diet would call for probably exclusive use of plants, meaning vegetables and fruits, and avoiding even eating things like eggs or fish or milk. However, these things are sort of superfoods, and in most of the climates, it's very difficult to get fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Do
you believe? I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, because I want to bring all the information in one short time. Yes. We have. I don't want to keep you online too long. I know it's evening back there. I apologize. Do you believe?
No,
yeah. Do you believe that the rest of us who eating meat or meat lovers, do you think they would live less life because of eating meat?
Well, I mean, if you look at the lifespan of animals, usually plant-eating animals are much longer living than the carnivores. than animals which eat meat. For example, wolves or lions and so on, they live maybe 15, 20 years. You know, while some animals which feed on green stuff, you know, like elephants and so on, they can live over 100 years, or turtles and so on.
Well, the life of animals and humans, two different things. What's the study shows in human life?
Well, definitely, the meat, for example, is not very healthy from many points of view. From the point of view of a low entropy diet, which I designed, is meat is too high on the food chain. So therefore, the higher you go on the food chain, the more broken molecules or disordered structures are. So therefore, meat is promoting aging, and therefore as well aging of the organism, which it consumes. On top of that, physiologically, meat is very difficult to digest. So very often it takes a long time for digestion, and as well tends to acidify the body. So meat is acidifying the body. So therefore, eating meat is not very, very healthy. And in practice.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And let me tell you that in practice, usually when you see people who are avoiding meat and basically exclude meat from their diet, usually live much longer.
You know, being in a society which majority are meat eaters, myself, I was vegetarian for a year, and then I could not socialize with friends and family because I could not eat with them. Their table was full of meat, and I was not a meat eater. So it was causing a lot of problems socially. You couldn't go anywhere or eat with people. That was part of the problem with vegetarianism at that moment. Now more people are vegetarian than before, you know.
Yes, but you know, for example, I am vegetarian for last 15 or 17 years. And I have to tell you, I have no problem with socializing with my family and friends. I mean, basically, I explained to them that for scientific reasons and humanitarian, you know, reasons, I don't eat animals. And they accept that. And, you know, usually on any party, I can find some food which I can eat and which is not containing meat. You know, they usually some are salads or vegetables or fruits or potatoes or bread or things like that. So I eat those things, and you know, people are accepting that. You know,
Yeah.
Once upon a time, they look at me as a sort of weird person because you know I was eating this funny diet, you know, funny things, but no longer they look like at me like that, and actually they envy me. Because many of them since fell ill, and I am still young, and I am still very healthy.
Yeah, that's a good sign, and you know, makes you look healthier than a lot of us out there. So
yeah, I'm 59. Mind you, I'm almost 59.
Oh my God! So I should go vegetarian again. You mentioned water is the #1 savior, and what's the #2 savior for good health?
Well, the water is one of the very important things. The other very important thing is to, for example, eat good fats. Very often people eat wrong fats. And after Second World War, what's happened, a lot of people were starting to eat margarines and hydrogenated fats. And hydrogenated fats are basically chemically altered things. It's not that water is mixed with the fats. You know, the sound or a word hydrogenation might suggest that basically it's a mixture of water and oil. It's not so. It's basically it's a chemical reaction. It's a chemical reaction which takes place, and what happens? Oil, usually very cheap oil, is put in a container, very very strong metal container, and under high pressure and high temperature, in the presence of some kind of catalyzers, hydrogen gas is injected into the oil and basically forms the new bonds and new molecules are formed. So up to 60% of molecules in hydrogenated fats can be damaged. And in majority of processed foods and sweets and chip sweets, buttons and some kinds of chocolates and all kinds of foods, hydrogenated fats are used because they are very stable. Bacteria don't want to eat that fat. So, there is a good rule. If bacteria doesn't eat something, then it's not good for eating,
So anything says hydrogenated fat on the label, we shouldn't touch it.
Yes. Modified fats, hydrogenated fats, or hardened fats. Sometimes they call this that the fats were hardened or modified. No, they shouldn't.
90% of food in U.S. is labeled high, all this stuff.
Oh yes, unfortunately. I mean, if you go to supermarket, seriously, and I mean, I travel quite extensively through U.S., Canada. I was in Australia. I'm in Italy right now, Poland, and so on. Germany, Holland. I mean, majority of foods are junk. I mean, you go to those supermarkets, and it's totally irresponsible on the part of government, and it's totally irresponsible on the part of the supermarkets, but basically they sell junk and they sell toxic foods. This is treason. This is basically nothing short of a treason. Because once upon a time, 100 years ago, when you walked into a food store, you basically were getting healthy foods. All foods were organic and all foods were usually healthy. Right now, you walk into a majority of stores and 95% or 98% of foods are toxic. Toxic.
Exactly, yeah.
So we are committing suicide. We are committing suicide as a society. And the problem as well is that basically we damify the society. We weaken society. I mean, they have lesser intellectual capacity. They have lesser physical capacity. Their health deteriorates, and so on. And my question as well is, who in the hell is going to pay for this bill? Because I mean, there is at the end of the street, on the rope. At the end of the rope, there is a bill waiting for us. That would be bill for all those sick people. And we are facing very major technological challenges in the future. Because I mean, we polluted the world so much, that we would have to really come up with some technologies to lower the fuel consumption, lower the energy and material consumption, and so on. Basically, to lower our ecological footprint, for individual person or nations or entire humanity, and those will be tremendous challenges. We would need people with brains. Now tell me, how to find people with brains if they drink Pepsi Cola or Coca-Cola and they eat hamburgers at McDonald's? I mean, we are going to turn all people into zombies.
Exactly,
zombies
yeah.
Thinking,
we see that in Los Angeles a lot, and zombification and robotism. They probably in that food chain there is mind control also. We hear there is mind control in lightings, TV transmissions, and cell phones, and now I think the food chain has mind control in it too. They probably program it. And one of our speakers was saying the water, they program the water. When you drink the water, it's already mind controlled. It can affect you because the message was programmed into the water in the city. That was something new for me. And he is part of employee of a government. in health and services. And hearing such a thing from him, that they can program the water in a large scale through some sound or something, that it will mind control you. This is something very new. Have you ever heard of that?
You mean programming the water? In other words, using something called like that water has some memory and things like that?
He wouldn't go any further, but he said they even what you call it? They, with sound, they play with the water in the city. The city, before the water goes out to the public. So the audio, it will change the molecularization, and it can mind control the people easier. Somehow,
you know, can I say something?
Sure.
You know, I am a scientist. I think this is a bullshit. Sorry, with this seriously. I mean, we have to distinguish things from which are abracadabra and hocus pocus from real science. I think this is a bullshit.
Now,
definitely you can influence mind with chemicals. You can influence mind with electromagnetic waves and so on. But, you know, first of all, I mean, if you dumbify society with Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola, all those toxic foods, McDonald's and so on, you don't have to brainwash them anymore. They are already done. I mean, they are already
that's
fucked
so
up.
funny.
They are already fucked up. Sorry for the word. You know, so you don't have to control them. They control themselves. They have only basic instincts.
Oh,
Food,
we forgot
sleep,
the sprain.
That's it.
We forgot the sprain every morning on the top too. Chemtrails. That's a good one.
Yes. You know, chemtrails. You know, there is some indication that something that is happening. Possibly by chemicals. Definitely, you can control moods. You can control many things. Yes, definitely. You know,
and the cell phones.
Something like,
the cell phones is the easiest.
Cell phones as well affect your brain, and electromagnetic waves and so on. I mean, certain sounds as well. But, you know, saying that you can irradiate with sound water and then that water would change and it would remember this, that's a bullshit.
Oh, wait a minute. Dr. Emoto in Japan has proved that water has memory, and you can bless the water or play hard rock music.
I don't believe in that, sorry.
Oh my God, this is big. You're a big scientist in sound and health and stuff. If these guys hear you saying that, they will write to you and they will call you.
Yes, that's all right. They can do that, but you know, you have to use certain skepticism, and you have to try to understand the principles how certain things work. And you know, I accept things which are possible. You know, I accept things which do work, but you know, certain things, I think there is a lot of hocus pocus and abracadabra, and a lot of people are trying, you know, to basically jump on the bandwagon and come up with some kinds of, you know, totally unexplainable phenomena and so on. I think, you know, I'm trying to simplify the world.
Going back to...
Some people are trying to make the world more complex than it is, you know.
Going back to your research on sound, you do believe that sound can be used as a weapon?
Oh, yes, I mean, definitely. I mean, you know, any explosion of a bomb is a basically sound wave. I mean, bomb doesn't have to even hit you with a shrapnel, you know. The piece of the bomb doesn't have to hit you. I mean, the bomb is creating such a strong sound wave that this pressure wave, it would destroy the buildings and so on. And you could even design bombs so they can destroy particular buildings because, you know, maybe they have a sequence of explosions which basically lead to vibrations of certain structures, and basically they fell down.
So could it be the 9/11, the towers, they use the sound vibration?
Well, I mean, in 9/11, you mean the Twin Towers in New York?
Yeah, could it be the...
I think no. I think they probably would use standard explosives somewhere. You know, if they wanted to, if they were, because you know, there are some speculations that somebody, you know, linked with the U.S. government wanted to basically do that to have excuse to have, you know, war in Iraq. And I mean, you could put extra charges, and there were some indication that there were some explosives on top of the strikes by the planes there. You know, it's possible. It's possible that those things happened. I mean, the government is, after all, very corrupted. You know, so they do a lot of dirty things. You know, like, for example, if governments wouldn't be corrupted, how come 7.6 million people die of cancer? We say that Nazis were criminals because they killed so many people in concentration camps, and they killed so many people, soldiers and so on. During Second World War, 50 million people died in war. You know, during combat, you know, and many people. I think 10 million Germans, 6 million Jews, almost 3.5 million Poles,
Ukrainians,
20 million Russians.
Yeah, 20 million.
You know, so altogether about 50 million people died. Big loss in 5 years. 5 years. So. On the other hand, I estimate from cancer every year, we know that, actually, we know statistics, 7.6 million people die of cancer every year. Majority of them can be saved. From all degenerative diseases, probably 20 to 40 million people die every year around the world. Those people could be saved. So who is committing bigger crime? Those who do not prevent what happened during the war, Second World War, or those who don't prevent what is happening right now?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. In U.S., we are even scared to go to doctor or hospitals, because yesterday on the news, I was listening. Actually, it was a Japanese news or some other news, that in U.S. there was a wrong operation. Imagine a doctor goes to operation room, do a wrong operation on a patient. So we have so many funny things going on, and stupid stuff like you say about even our foods, and specifically they would like to kill more people fast as possible. And even
I mean, government is committing a crime. Government is guilty. Majority of governments around the world are guilty of committing a serious humanitarian crime. You know, on the weight equivalent to crimes committed by Nazis. Because, I mean, more people died every year than they died during the years of Second World War. During the years of Second World War, 10 million people died.
And all this stuff can be...
And right now there is probably 20 to 40.
And it could be stopped by modifying food or all the change.
Definitely. Yeah. You know, I am also for controlling the population, but I mean, we should control population via education. You know, we should prevent people having 30 children or 40 children. There are countries in which a father has 3 wives and has 40 children. 40 children. You know, so I mean, we have to prevent that. You know, that's cannot happen. So we have to use education and so on, but we cannot outright kill people.
No,
you know,
they exactly. Yeah, they created.
We are not animals, and I mean, we shouldn't even kill animals. I mean, you know, we are savages. Basically, when you look at the humanity and at people, we don't deserve to live on Earth. We don't.
Well, if you say we shouldn't kill animals, I can go back and tell you shouldn't kill plants and vegetables either.
Well, but you know, at least those things have not such a sophisticated nervous system and so on. You know, unfortunately, we evolved to eat. You know, however, it's probably much less harmful for the environment, for our health, and as well for animals that we don't use them as a resource. I mean, you can feed much more people just using plant food, and it's healthier and it's healthier.
Definitely, yeah, I agree.
So
And yeah,
and I think we overpopulated the world as well. You know, because if you look at the growth of population in 1830, there was 1 billion people on Earth. 1 billion. Right now is 7 billion, 7 times as much. And back then, in 1830, probably each person was using maybe 1/40th, 1 part in 40 what person is using now, an average. So when you multiply 7 by 40, then the environmental impact the population right now has in comparison to population in 1830 is about 280 or almost 300 times.
well, thanks
So
to Chinese, you know, thanks to China, if they would have not stopped their the population, the world would have been 20 billion by now.
Yes, I know, but the problem is right now China is becoming very affluent, and a lot of Chinese are migrating to other countries, and they are not longer restricted, you know, by the laws in China, and they would have children, you know, in Australia, Canada, US, wherever, you know, and the population would grow very rapidly, you know, and the same happens with Indian population and many others. I think basically we should, through education, and we should limit number of children to about maximum 2 per 2 parents, you know. We should reduce eventually in the future generation, we should reduce our population to about 500 million to 1 billion. I think billion would be healthy sort of balance with billion people using few resources. In other words, learning to use less resources than we use right now. Then it would be okay.
We will have a dilemma with China because next 10 years or 20 years, Chinese male, about let's say 1 billion Chinese male will come to a conclusion they do not have enough females and enough food, and that will force 1 billion male Chinese come out of China looking for food and females as a natural human instinct to go to other countries, and that could end up as a heavy army attack also, not necessarily a humanitarian travel. So at some point China will look for food and more females, because they're going short of both of them as we speak for next 10-20 years. Also in Africa, with the creation of AIDS virus by secret agencies, even that didn't help, and Africans are multiplying very rapidly. They say by end of century we will have 22 billion people on the earth, and 17 billion will be Africans, and they cannot stop the Africa.
Well, I have a feeling. I have a feeling that we basically the end of the world didn't happen yesterday, but if we do not clean up our acts, if you look at, there is a book actually which I would recommend. It's called Our Ecological Footprint, and we basically are already using more resources than is sustainable, and basically we are very rapidly depleting our resources. So pretty soon there would be not enough food, not enough water, and many other resources, and pollution would be very, very high. Unfortunately, governments are stupid, because basically most of them employ stupid people with no scientific background. I mean, you know, they employ many lawyers and trained politicians with very little scientific knowledge. And basically they try to establish systems which totally violate the physical laws of the world or biological laws of the world. This world is bound, as I mentioned to you yesterday, by the laws of physics and laws of biology and so on. You cannot say we are humans, we can live above those laws. No, there is no such a thing. You know, if you want the cow to fly, cow would never fly because this is against the laws of physics. Doesn't have wings, is far too heavy. You would never teach cow to fly.
That's right.
You know, and many politicians tend to sort of sell us the ideas that they can make cows fly. You know, there is no such a thing. I mean, there are many restrictions in a physical world and biology and physics, which basically it cannot be violated. They cannot be violated.
So the only way out of this thing is leaving the planet to multiply other planets with human type, like migration.
No.
Migration, actually.
No. You know, I will tell you a joke. You know, a planet flies by Earth, another planet, and looks at the Earth, and Earth looks very sick. And she says, "What did you get?" And the Earth says, "I have humans." And the other planet replies, "Don't worry, this infection lasts only a very short time."
That's a funny one. Yeah. So what you're saying is this planet would not exist in, let's say, 500 years. The humans.
You know, you see, the problem is, you know, some people believe, well, you know, if we screwed up here, things, then we would go to another planet. Name me another planet which is close by, which would be compatible with humans, which you could reach with him, you know, even couple of human lifespans. There is none. There is none.
Yeah, the closest one is 8 light years away. Correct. You're right.
You know. I mean, try to get that. We cannot get there with today's technologies, or maybe even tomorrow's or after tomorrow technology. We cannot get there. We cannot get there because our spaceships wouldn't even last this long. You know. So what are you trying to do? I mean, you know, and what you are counting on alien technology that they would warp you there? You know, to tell you the truth, I do not believe. I'm planning to write a paper on time because I think Wait!
I have an answer to your questions because
yes.
I might forget answering your question. It's very important for the audience to know this. There is a thing called time portals. We don't need UFOs. We don't need to get in the spaceship. We just pass the gate. The gates are created. The gates are all around the world. The U.S. government is closing so many gates. One of the reasons they attacked Iraq, they had stargates that people could pass through. They had a fear Saddam Hussein was with extraterrestrials who were coming and going through the gate. This is something that we heard from high officials in military. They were passed messages to ufologists that there are some gates opening up, and some gates are in Iraq, Russia, and other parts of the world, and in Iran too. That's another reason they probably want to attack Iran, to close those gates. And these are stargates being around the earth for a long time, probably at the time of Atlantis or Egyptians or you name it.
But is this science or science fiction?
Well, you want a proof? I gotta take you to Marcavazi, Peru, that they say there is a gate there and people come and go.
Well,
but you want to do that?
I would gladly do that because, you know, I am, as I said, I am open-minded scientist, but I would like to sort of distinguish between science and the pseudoscience or science fiction.
Some groups even invited me to go. They said we are taking some people who we trust to take through the gate in Marcahuasi, Peru, to other planets, and we come and go. And I said I'm not ready for such a trip because I have family, and so I mean, leaving the. Some people believe you go, you don't come back. I'm not sure about a lot of things, so but I would love to, if I know I'm coming back through the gate. Time travel is for sure. You believe in that, right?
Time travel?
Yeah.
I told you I'm planning to write a paper on time. I mean, time was glorified in science fiction books and many movies and so on. I think time is have achieved a higher sort of level of appreciation and glorification than it deserves. Time is not. Time is only something which is helpful to explain certain phenomena in physics. Time does not exist by itself.
Correct. That is true.
It's a sort of very useful tool to explain certain equations and so on. I would elaborate on that more in my paper, but I have to tell you that I do not believe that time travel is possible. Time travel is possible. No.
Well, we are going off your subject, which is sound and cancer. So I think I will rather talk about your subject than subjects you're not familiar with.
Okay.
Going back
but I'm quite familiar with time travel.
Okay, because, so how do you say we know time doesn't exist? I agree with you, but then why you say time travel is not possible?
Because, as I said, time travel comes from the notion of the fact that you can move on the axis of time. You can move forward or backwards on the time axis of time.
Wait a minute. I have an answer to your question. In a real fact documented by military, Philadelphia experiment in 19 whatever it was. You know about that. It is documented. They went in time. Al Bilik, which I personally talked to him when he was alive years ago, 10, 20 years ago. So we know from testimonies of people involved in Philadelphia experiment. They went through time, they went back and forth, so that nullifies what you're saying.
I haven't experienced that myself, and as I said, some of the people even in mainstream science are lying, and many people in pseudoscience are lying. So I am very skeptical until I talk directly to some people and until I see directly evidence of things like that. I read about Philadelphia experiment. How much is truth in that? I don't know. To me, it's a speculation.
Montauk Project. We have so many witnesses. Even people work there. People who were victimized there as little kids, who are grown-up men right now. They were not mind control. They were time travel through the Montauk chair. Montauk chair was given to humans by extraterrestrials, and that was one of their gifts to humanity. Montauk chair does the time travel, and these people went back and forth in time. It's getting late in Italy, huh? What time is there?
No, it's not that late, but I had a very long walk today. I went to Bologna downtown, and I was doing some pictures with some friends, and I probably walked.
You're lucky.
15 kilometers probably walked.
You're lucky. You have the Italian wine, women, and bread. That's good.
No, I don't drink wine. But what I was going to say, if aliens do exist, you know, I am sure they would be smarter than our politicians, and I would welcome their input, you know, because I would probably take any alien over any politician. You know, you know, you cannot get any more stupid than majority of politicians. So, you know, if we would have anybody from other worlds contacting us, I think that would be a great news. I think, because maybe they will send some smart people, unless they send stupid politicians on those long-range travel trips. You know, maybe that's the way of getting rid of politicians. Maybe they should be used as astronauts, you know, to find new planets. You basically take hundreds of them and you shoot the rocket, you know, and search for the planet.
So
you know, when you
a
find one, then come back.
you as a prominent scientist, you don't believe we should terraform other planets like Mars, or closer planets like, you know, Pluto, or you name it.
Look, I wrote a paper in 1992 which explains life not only on Earth, but explains principles governing life at anywhere in the universe. And actually, this paper is used by many scientists, including astrophysicists. We cannot govern our own Earth. We cannot govern our own Earth, which is almost perfect environment for us. So why we would like to adopt Mars? And Mars, what Mars would give us? Even if we would be able to adopt Mars, it would be tremendous undertaking, and it only would give us twice as much space as Earth, you know, at most. So what's the big gain? I mean, we are going to overpopulate that very quickly. You know, look at the bacteria. You know, they populate, you know, dish or whatever so quickly, and humans would do too. So I mean, it's not big point. I think we have to learn how to use our spaceship Earth and use our resources and solve our problems. And if we would be lucky, and indeed there would be some higher civilization able to help us to resolve some of the problems, or you know, enlighten us in certain aspects, that would be great.
Well,
I think I would welcome this kind of input.
For your information, I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to teach you anything. I'm your student because you're a scientist. For your information, the Atlanteans 30,000 years ago, 25,000 years ago, so they, at the time of the pole shift, they left the planet. They went to Pleiades, the 7 star system, 7 sisters were Pleiades, and they're coming back as contactees to let us know who they were at the time of Atlantis. They went to Pleiades, they survived, they have a higher technology. They were humans like me and you, and now they're ahead of us in a lot of things. They're coming here to help us as human type, you know, and
you know,
yeah,
that would be great. I mean, you know, I mean, if you would see any higher civilization coming to Earth in one way, on one form, in another, they wouldn't come here for oil, or they wouldn't come here for meat. They wouldn't come here for gold or anything like that, because if they would have this higher technology, they would be able to harness all those much before, you know, they would need any resources. Well, so I expect if any higher civilization would contact us and come to us, it would only come to us with basically trying to enlighten us, or, you know, help us with certain technological problems and so on. It's not to use us as a resource, or use Earth as a resource, or anything like that.
Yeah, we are useless to them, except some minerals on the planet they might be interested, rare earth or...
But you know, if somebody has high technology, I mean, you can synthesize many chemicals in nuclear reactors. You can synthesize any chemicals in nuclear reactors. So, I mean, if you have higher technology, you basically use synthesis in the nuclear reactors.
So, I'm not understanding...
You can synthesize anything. So, you can synthesize anything.
So, what are you trying to say? I'm not getting it.
what I am saying, that some people, whether in science fiction or even science or whatever, they are trying to say that if alien races would come, they would come here for certain resources. Maybe they need gold, or they need something, like oil, they need maybe food or water or whatever. And what I'm saying, if somebody would have such a high technology, they wouldn't need to do any of those things, because they can synthesize that using nuclear reactors and so on. And they could use nuclear reactions to synthesize any type of atoms or any type of element. So.
What's the usage of that synthesization?
Yes.
What is the usage of that synthesization in nuclear plants?
Well, I mean, if let's say you have access to high technology and you want to make gold, you take some other atoms and you turn them into gold.
The cost will be too much, right? Expensive.
Well, I mean, if somebody can travel hundreds light years and they have technology to do that, then basically they have technology to do that on their own planet or wherever.
Oh yeah, definitely. You're right. Definitely, yeah. I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
They're not going to take 100,000 tons of gold and fly this back 100 light years away or something.
You're right. You're right on that one. Yeah, and that tells me that what they're saying, the Anunnakis came here 4,000 years ago in Sumeria for gold. That's wrong also, because what you're saying, they were advanced also at that time either to create gold themselves. That is not why they came here. So whatever reason.
No, I would say if there would be any high civilizations coming, they would come for other reasons, not related to resources.
So that destroys the Zecharia Sitchin's theory, or actually he was. God bless his soul. I met him. He was translating the clay tablets from Iraq, Mesopotamia. They found Sumerian tablets. That he was not making it up himself. But why would Nibiru people or Anunnakis come for gold to this planet? And if they could create gold themselves, like you say, that's a...
Well, maybe if they came, or maybe they wanted to use gold because just to repair whatever they had,
And I mean, a lot of people... Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So basically, I mean, if you make a spaceship or anything like that, and let's say that there are extraterrestrials traveling a long time in a ship, I am sure the ship would sustain a lot of damage, and you would need some materials to repair it. So I would say only that if they would require any materials, would be just to repair that, because the ship might not have all the technology to synthesize various compounds.
We know for a fact that they were interested in human women, and they took a lot of because this planet has the most beautiful women in the universe. So they took a lot of females' genetics with them, and that's something good for them, I guess I would go to such a planet.
And they were compatible genetically. That's very, very strange that they were compatible genetically. I mean, fact that life can exist on other planets, it doesn't mean that we would be compatible biologically with these life forms. We could have different structure genetic, we could have different DNA structure, or their structure could be based on some other structure, not necessarily DNA. So, assuming that the life forms in the universe share the same DNA is sort of as well, I think, assuming too much, in a sense. I mean, our particular physical makeup is quite unique and not necessarily universal.
Are you Darwinist? Are you Darwinist, or you believe there was a creation or Big Bang or what?
Look, I have sort of mixture of believing in God and as well Darwinism. In a sense, I think Darwin is very right about evolution, and Bible and God doesn't explain to humans how He did the creation. I mean, fact that life exists is hidden already in laws of physics of the universe. I mean, life on Earth does not have to be started. When you look at the makeup of Earth and elements on Earth and the radiation and sun radiation and early stages of Earth, life could spontaneously start here, basically because of the existing laws of physics. The divine is hidden in already laws of physics.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting what you're saying. It's
so in a sense, I think sometimes this dialogue and this strong argument between evolutionists and the creationists that they exclude each other is wrong. In my opinion, the higher being, like God, however you call the higher being, which created life, I mean, the universe is created in such a way that laws of physics already allow life to happen.
So,
in other words,
it's a very interesting factor, yeah.
Have you heard about experiment by what's his name, Miller, in 1950s?
No, go ahead. What did he do?
Okay, there was a speculation whether chemical components, organic components, can be formed from non-organic components. So what they did, they had basically some non-organic components, water, and they had electrodes inserted there, and they put the spark and light through this, but everything was closed. And after a couple of weeks of those sparks going through that was sort of simulating the early Earth.
Okay.
In 3.5 billion years ago, when there was a lot of clouds and lightning and water and non-organic compounds. And believe it or not, after a couple of weeks of that, when they opened this glass, which was totally isolated, they find there molecules which are classified as organic molecules.
Wow. What did he use? Water and electricity, and what else?
Water, electricity, and non-organic compounds.
Non-organic, like what?
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, look, this is light, right?
Yeah.
You see? You don't see the light.
Uh-huh.
Light can generate. Light brings entropy, negative entropy.
What entropy means? What negative entropy means?
Well, you have to read my original paper, which you can find on Facebook, or if you Google me, Dr. Marek Roland, you would find my paper called Life on Earth, Flow of Energy and Entropy. Life on Earth, Flow of Energy and Entropy. And this paper explains that basically entropy is a measure of organization. Any system of molecules, atoms, and so on, you could assign a number associated with its organization. And as its organization decreases, the entropy is growing, which is according to second law of thermodynamics. So, interesting thing about Miller experiment was that basically it shows, because some people said, well, life is impossible to happen. Somebody has to make life on Earth, and probably came here on meteorites or higher civilization, created life and so on. What I'm telling you, this is not contradicting the notion of fact that God created life. God created Earth and created universe in such a way that life can start spontaneously here. Spontaneously. So in other words, God made a move, and everything fell in such a way that everything else would sort of follow.
Yeah, that's a very
In other,
interesting. That's a very interesting concept and theory. What do you call that theory? You gotta name it. So
it's called logic and physics.
no, but you gotta name it something. Or is it only you believe that, or how many more scientists?
This is my original theory, and basically it's scientifically sound, you know. And in fact, you know, in the Bible, for example, God created world in 7 days. I mean, remember that Bible was written for simple people by simple people. You know, so
there is no such thing as Bible. They grabbed a bunch of people's writing. I'm not talking about Old Testament. Old Testament is a real Bible. The New Testament is a writings of all the disciples by inspiration, and that's all it is.
And you know, and so therefore there is a lot of you know, bias, and as well. Yeah. Remember, this is complex topics explained by simple men. Imagine that I would come to Earth then 2,000 years ago or several thousand years ago, and I will try to explain what I'm trying to tell you. Majority of people wouldn't understand that. You know,
people exactly.
If I would tell them that something took 3.5 billion years, they wouldn't understand. So I would tell them it happened in 7 days.
Yeah,
they would understand 7 days.
People are cockroaches. You know? They go to work and they come home and they have no time to even.
I mean, here I don't
they're
know.
Robotics, you know.
But listeners of your program right now, or you, I mean, I could try to communicate to you, because I mean, you already know notion of maybe entropy and energy and Darwin theory and so on and so on. So I mean, it's still some things which I'm telling you are new. But I mean, if I would tell this 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, I mean, I couldn't. I would have to tell them, look, you know, God created light. You know, there was darkness and there was light, right?
Okay.
And all of a sudden, you know, the light started to appear. God created the world in 7 days, and you know, so you simplify. You basically simplify.
So if you put the sunlight, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you put the sunlight, if you got the water and you got the earth, the planet itself can generate micro bacteria. From bacteria, you get
it would generate life. It would generate life.
And then wait a minute. Basically, as a human, I gotta understand where you're going. You're saying the bacteria was caused by water, light, and earth, and then that created a fish or a human. That's where I cannot connect. How do you get from bacteria to a form like fish or an animal or a human?
Well, you know, evolution has tendency of basically there are two things. Actually, my work added a lot of insights to evolution, because my work, Darwin explained natural selection, but he didn't explain how organisms were formed. Complex organisms were formed on Earth. My paper, Life on Earth, Flow of Energy and Entropy, explains how the life was formed on Earth. Basically what's happened, you have this simple organism, not even organisms, I mean, initially they were just molecules, autocatalytic molecules, and molecules which were in the solutions, and when there were similar compounds around them, you know, when there was proper temperature and chemical components, they would duplicate. In other words, they would make a copy of the same molecule.
That's right, yeah.
You know, so basically they were self-replicating molecules. But
okay.
That's sort of, so eventually we could say that first life forms were formed, and they were getting more and more complex. You know, they get maybe cell membrane because that was protecting the molecule inside, and so on and so on. And eventually, you know, more and more complex organisms were happening. And some of them were maybe scavenging, you know, like there were small molecules and there was one which was a bit bigger, and this organism would eat the others. And rather than take slow to grow, it would absorb those components and grow faster.
And dinosaurs came around out of that, and
so basically everything grew from very small and simple to grow complex and more complex and more complex and more complex and so on and so on.
Wait a minute. It could be an extraterrestrial ship bringing some experimental, like infusing with the molecules on the Earth to create a new.
It could, but what I'm saying, it could. I'm not excluding that, but it doesn't have to. I mean, even if we would leave Earth alone with the conditions which they are, with physical laws and sun radiation and everything, given 3.5 billion years, we would arrive at the stage which we are.
I mean, look at what you're saying is correct. Excuse me. In Amazon jungle in Brazil, because the scientists in the forest of Amazons, they look at 1 square feet, just 1 square feet. They had 40,000 different kind of insects when they took samples of 1 square feet. So I mean, how could be 40,000 different insects in a little area in Amazon? What you're saying is very interesting, because that could create different kind of formations of animals and humans and butterflies.
It does. The stupid thing is what we do with the Earth. Basically, we destroy Amazon, we destroy biodiversity with GMOs. We have companies like Monsanto screwing up our food supply and our crops. We have companies like Microsoft screwing up our computer systems. That's. In other words, we have a lot of stupid and immoral companies around, and we are not. Look, I mean, we are not such a complicated creatures. I mean, talking about humans. If we would be divine and complicated, then I would say yes, there was divine intervention. But we are so stupid on the average that, I mean, we don't need divine intervention. I mean, we just evolve, We just evolve. If we would have extraterrestrials creating us, they would create something smarter than we are.
They're probably laughing at us.
We are quite dumb.
They're probably laughing at us. They're calling us cockroaches,
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
7 billion cockroaches.
Exactly. So I mean, we are worse than animals. I mean, we don't have enough brain or enough instinct to basically coordinate our efforts and so on. So, I mean, right now we are basically close to our brink of extinction.
Wait a minute. Where are we going with this topic is very interesting, because we could have other animals on the planet take over humans. For example, the notion of some other survivability of humans will go rapidly down for some funny stupid reason. For example, something bacteria will kill all the humans. Some new whatever happens, as a hypothesis, and some other animal.
That's very optimistic point of view.
And it can happen the way we're going.
I like that.
Yeah, the way we're going definitely will happen. Something will destroy us out of nowhere. Some little thing.
But no. I think we will destroy ourselves. I don't look at any planet Nibiru hitting us or solar flares or something like that. That will happen. But I think we are, as humans, as human race, on the path of destruction. And if we don't change our things, we don't need any polar shifts or magnetic shifts, or we don't need any solar flares, or we don't need planet Nibiru to hit us, or whatever. I think we are going to destroy ourselves within another 10, 20, 30 years.
Even without a nuclear event, or with nuclear?
Even without it. Even without it. even without it.
Even without, are you taught, what you say in 10, 20 years, that's radical, because how would humans disappear in 20 years without...
Very, very quickly. I mean, you never know. It's you had some jars with some gems in your kitchen, or maybe some herring in the vinegar or things like that. I mean, bacteria cannot live in some of those environments. I mean, we can exceed certain limits of the environment which is livable to humans. And that we can reach maybe in 10, 20 years. Not enough oxygen, too high concentration of certain compounds, we could no longer have children, and things like that, and so on, and so on. So eventually...
Yeah, go ahead.
So imagine that, for example, there is a compound which would sterilize the majority of people. And basically population would collapse. And level of this compound on Earth would take a couple of hundreds of years to get reduced. So what would happen? The population would get sterilized. There would be no children, or very few children, and the next generation would have the same problem. And within a couple of generations, human race is gone. And so there are many scenarios. I mean, we are basically creating a very unstable world, which is very risky for our life. I mean, bacteria would survive much more harsh environment and viruses than we can. The higher organisms are much more susceptible to radiation and chemicals than the lower organisms. So if we screwed up on Earth, we would be extinct first. We would be one of the first to get extinct. And I think this rightly so. I think that's the proper way of thinking. I mean, since we have brain, we have to use this brain to create an environment which is stable. But we do the reverse. We make the environment which is very unstable. An environment which creates a lot of new bacteria, viruses, pathogens, chemical pathogens, and so on. We weaken our immune system. So I mean, we basically point the vectors. If you think about certain tendencies, we point the vectors in wrong directions.
So you give it a 20 years. You give it a 20 years max before extinction.
Yes, I would say so.
Wow, that's as a scientist, that's so alarming, and yeah, and amazing that politicians don't want to listen to you guys or hear you guys, read your papers or talk to you guys. That's another thing.
Well, I mean, they are ignorance. They are ignorance, and eventually, when it would come to this date, they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we were wrong." But it would be too late. I mean, it's sort of like, let's say you drive a car against the concrete wall, right? And politician is driving this car, and you are a physicist, and a car goes 100 kilometers an hour, and you say, it's 100 meters from the concrete wall, you should brake. Politician said, no, I still have time. And you say, no, you don't have time. So it's 50 meters. He said, please stop, slow down. No, we still have time, we can drive, So it's 20 meters, and politician says, no, we can still drive. And this is the last call, you have to stop. And he doesn't, and he started to brake 10 meters from the concrete wall. Would he survive? And no. And he would die, and you would die, and he would say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. So
actually, the GMO companies, they elected him, they paid the money for that president, that politician, all these bastards to be on the top of us, and they rule us. So these corporations, they're running the food chain, they're running the human dilemma.
That's this is unfortunate. That's the same like Federal Reserve in US. I mean, how one can have an organization which basically lends money to government. Government should be in charge of that, and not private organization. I mean, U.S. has Federal Reserve, which is private organization formed by several banks, who bribed a president in 1915 or something, who basically put Federal Reserve Act, and passed the law, and basically they lend the money to government. I mean, our world is corrupted totally. And if we don't change, and I hope that day yesterday was not any physical threat to the world, but I think maybe there is sort of some kind of age of awakening.
Yeah, it was awakening, exactly. Yeah, it was
age of awakening, and so to your viewers, I would like to say, people, wake up, wake up. We are really not far from this concrete wall. I mean, stop your brakes. Start to think. Thinking is in high demand. Thinking is in high demand. Start to think. Because, I mean, there are no other people and no external forces which are going to save us. I mean, we have to save ourselves. We have to start to think and do things right.
Our kids, save our future generations, yeah.
Because we are doing so many things wrong. I mean, you cannot survive if you do so many things wrong, I mean, there is no way. I mean, you would expect miracles. I mean, only miracles can save us with what we are doing right now on Earth. I mean, we are doing so many wrong things, but only miracles would save us, really.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live with city of Genoa in Bologna in Italy with Dr. Marek Roland. He's a physicist, sound engineer, and also cancer researcher. He's written a lot of great research books and papers that you can research on Google. His name, Marek, M-A-R-E-K, Roland, R-O-L-A-N-D, and also he's on Facebook with his name. Also, please check Alchemy Event for his videos and speeches. We have livestream.com/alienshift channel, ALIENSHIFT. Alien Shift is a research group who does extraterrestrial research for past 20 years. Alchemy Event is an event organization that brings you a lot of new topics. Please support Alchemy Event, ALCHEMYEVENT, alchemyevent.com, and our projects. And basically today with Dr. Marek, we covered a lot of information about new topics. And so Dr. Roland, yesterday was awakening, and it was a very good thing you said, awakening and revelations to a new era and new age for humanity. That is definitely true.
That's how I see it, and I hope that would be in fact the age of awakening, and people really should start to think and should start to basically use intelligence and knowledge and love, in interaction with each other, because we cannot live as a separate beings without cooperating with others, and cooperating in a positive way in being truthful in those interactions, being truthful, exchanging real information, being forgiving, being tolerant to each other, loving each other, because after all we are very similar. We are all related very closely. I mean, some new research shows that we actually all on Earth share one mother, which was living in Ethiopia about 200,000 years ago.
Wow.
So basically we are all related.
That's interesting, huh?
So if you would look probably at everybody's genetic code, I mean, you take two strangers and probably in 30 or 40 generations back, you would probably find common ancestors.
How did genetics change that through time to different colors or races like that?
Well, it was basically adaptation. I mean, initially all humans in Africa, they were created. The first humans were basically formed in Africa. And hold a second. There is somebody at the door. Can we make a break?
Sure.
I would come back in 5 minutes.
No problem. We go ahead. Go ahead. Take your time, and we come back to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this show. We have this is Said David Farman, Alchemy Event, and we have an extraordinary day yesterday. We had an extraordinary day yesterday, December 21st, and a lot of revelations happened. Please check out 9 hours of videos we taped for over 10 speakers on livestream.com/alienshift on the video log, and watch those and support our cause by donations. Please donate.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes,
sir. It was mistaken identity. It was wrong buzzer, you know.
Okay. They usually do that. The governments, they send agents to the doors to.
Yes, that's right. Yes, they were coming to our rescue because I said too many truthful things.
Let's make it a conspiracy.
Anyway, you know, I really believe that we still have a time to save the Earth and to save humans.
Wait! I don't agree with you, because Earth is so big, so huge. This planet.
No, it's not. It's not so big. And I will send you. A picture showing how little water we have actually on Earth. I mean, the amount of water is a small ball, and the huge ball of Earth, there is a small amount of water.
If you destroy the Earth, 1 square foot of the Amazon jungle can regenerate the new Earth and everything again, with insects and with dinosaurs again and humans.
But you know, if we, I mean, we are destroying is sort of like, imagine somebody cuts your both legs and both hands, you know, and how would you? And they would leave you on the beach to fend yourself. Would you be able to live? I mean, we are basically destroying Earth to the point when the Gaia has, you know, we are cutting off the Gaia's limbs, and we are destroying certain key species. There are certain species which are called keystone species.
Okay.
You know, and there are, and if you look at the rate of extinction right now, it's really very, very high. The rate of extinction of animals is the highest ever.
Oh, okay. This is the problem. Extinction rate.
And this is very big problem. For example, you would think that mosquitoes, people would think, oh, they are pests, you can just destroy them. No, mosquitoes are very useful. You know, for example, mosquitoes are pollinating blackberries, and they are pollinating sunflowers in the forest. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
You see, so people would think mosquitoes are not needed. No, they pollinate. They are pollinating, and mosquitoes are biting because, you know, mosquitoes females are biting because they need a lot of nutrients to make eggs. So the blood is rich in the nutrients. So they like to bite animals where they can draw blood. You know, because it's nutrient rich, you know. But many species are very important, very, very important. But you were saying we are going about Ethiopia, why people change colors of skin and so on. I mean, it's a matter of adaptation. I mean, you know, migration from Ethiopia was, you know, like 150 or 100,000 years ago. And within 20, 30,000 years, if you have so many generations, if you put white people in Africa, they would become dark skin. And if you put black people in northern countries, they would become white people.
In how long?
You know, because it's probably 20, 30, 40,000 years.
A lot of Africans go to Europe, and in 40 years they don't become white.
No, not in 40 years. No, it takes generations. It takes generations. 20, as I said, 20 to 40,000 years probably.
Oh, 20,000 years.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So our grandmother was born 200,000 years, or probably 20 million years ago or something.
No, 200,000 years ago.
Is that age? How did they come up with that year, that number?
Basically, they did some study of the RNA, mitochondrial RNA, which is inherited after mothers, and they basically look at the mutations in the various populations. And by knowing roughly the mutations and how often they occur, they were able to basically establish how many years ago that occurred, and they were able to establish that that population was the oldest population. That the tribe in Ethiopia was probably the tribe which was original tribe which gave life to all humans living currently on Earth.
And I do believe in Africa, and there was origination life as you know. What do you think about the theory that? Excuse me. Dr. Sitchin was bringing the origination was in Middle East, in the Euphrates River in Iraq.
Well, but I mean that's very, very close. I mean, you know, it's a sort of splitting a needle or match into you know, splitting a thread or hair into several pieces. I mean, it basically life or humans develop in warm climate, because I mean, remember, early humans were very primitive and so on, so it was much more hospitable where there was a lot of food and it was warm.
Do you believe, you know, do you believe in devolution like I do, that we were not evolved, we were devolved, we were more intelligent in the beginning, we were more telepathic and much stronger, and we are getting weaker and sicker, and we are devolution, we are going devoluted rather than evolution?
There was a very good scientific writer in Poland. His name was Stanisław Lem. He was writing science fiction books, and he put this argument very interestingly. He said, if indeed, for example, telepathy would be something of a trait a long time ago, it would give such an evolutionary advantage that it would rather get stronger in people than get weaker. So he thinks that probably telepathy and other those phenomena are rather new developing things rather than ones which were once upon a time. So it would rather develop than it's a trait which we lost.
Okay, forget about telepathy, but do you think we've been evolving, or do you think we've been going down and getting?
No, I think we are evolving towards that. But you know, unfortunately, I think I have to mention as an evolutionist and a biophysicist, I would say we do tremendous damage to human population by wars, because you know, some people even look at wars as some kind of positive thing, in a sense that basically when you have overpopulation, you had a war, and war basically reduced the population. You know, if humans cannot reduce that by peaceful means, maybe war fulfills the need of reducing the population.
That's right.
The problem with that, however, from when you look at that from the evolutionary point of view, wars usually kill the brightest people. If you look at the Second World War, you know, people who died in concentration camps or who were executed and so on. They were very often intellectuals.
Exactly. Yeah.
They were teachers, professors, priests, and so on, educated people, and very, very bright people, and very brave people. The same happened in Soviet Union. I mean, they killed in their gulags probably 30, 60 million people. And again, very, very good people died. I mean, you know, very people who were opposed to government, people who were brave and smart and so on. And Stalin and Lenin and, you know, those people killed them.
Stalin, Stalin killed the best man in Russia. You're right. Huh?
So basically what is happening, we are killing for last 1,000 years the brightest people. You know, the best people are killed. So therefore, the IQ of people is, rather than growing, is actually decreasing. I think we are decreasing the IQ of population, not only with food and television and, you know, mass media and press and everything, which dummifies the population.
And what you're saying, I'm sorry to interrupt you, what you're saying in USA, they've been killing a lot of scientists past 5-10 years who are researching number of researches. So biogenetics, cloning, you name it, different. They even chase them around the world, or, you know, secret agents or whatever. So they're after certain brains, like you say, you know.
Yes. You know, and this is very, very bad, because in a sense, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. What I am saying, our generation and our civilization needs very good brains, because we are going to have tremendous technological and scientific challenges. Tremendous. And we would have to employ really extremely bright people to solve some of those things. But how can we get those people if we dumbify population, if we kill the brightest, or if we, you know, make them dumb by food, you know, and all other things?
Well,
you know, by education.
Maybe that's a plan for governments to more control, and so the smart people.
But government is going to shoot themselves in the foot, because when they would need somebody bright, they wouldn't be able to find those people.
We don't have any more bright people in a lot of departments.
And I have complained actually from business people, you know, that they have problem really to attracting the top talent. That there is not that much top talent. I mean, you have some people who can do certain types of job, but, you know, top talent, there is very little of that. We don't have very many really very bright people.
So, as a new era, new generation of time and timeline, or new age has started since yesterday, maybe private citizens and public should create such a new horizon for humanity, to create new groups that, like yourself or other scientists, create new groups that they can save humanity rather than waiting for governments.
Yes, I believe so. I mean, you know, basically the people should get charged and not rely on government to solve the problems and then be savior. Because actually government is doing the opposite. I mean, government is making things worse, you know, and a government should be checked upon, and government should be accountable to people. You know, so they have to build mechanisms which would control government, which would check the government, grassroots movements which basically watch the government, and have as well power. Basically,
people are not dogs and cats to be governed. Humans don't need governments and governors or anybody to rule us or set laws or bylaws. Humans.
We need guidance, but we need guidance. But we need guidance by not the sort of somebody who is trying to put some stupid laws, but we need some guidance by gurus. We need guidance by people who are deep in knowledge, who are deeply spiritual, who are deeply humanitarian. I mean, we need people like that. And show me one person in government who is like that anywhere.
It's the first day they fire you if they find out. It's like on the job they see you're thinking differently, or
Yes.
you look different, or you write things differently, or you blog things differently. They fire you. So that we have so many cases, and myself too. I lost so many good jobs before that. I could have been very highly promoted right now. So, but in very high corporations, or my own business. But they brought us down. They.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is negative selection. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Negative selection. That's a good word. Huh?
Negative selection, and this is actually intellectual. How to say? Like when you are against certain group of people and so on. Basically, it's what is the word? Basically, I spent too much time in Europe, I suppose. My English is getting worse. It's basically, you are trying to suppress people who are highly intellectual. So.
What's it like in Europe? We being in America, we're not in touch so much with Europe to know. Are they doing the same in Europe also, huh?
Well, I mean, economically, it's not doing very well. I think there is too much administration, and I think they are trying to impose certain things in various countries, despite the logic. Certain rules governing food and many other things. So I think there is a lot of corruption, and money being used wrongly for very wrong projects and so on.
This European Union, EU, was it to you was a good thing or it wasn't a good thing?
European Union as an ideal, it was probably good, to provide certain cooperation, but not at the expense of sort of individualities of the countries. They are trying to unify too many things, and I think every country has its own culture, certain specific laws regarding food, and so on and so on. So trying to establish sort of like a uniform standard for that in something which has different economical levels and cultural background and so on is wrong. It's wrong. It's sort of like they were trying to sell to us free trade as a sort of very good thing, and basically what it did, it destroyed the industry in Canada and States and Europe, and industry went to China. And so what is the advantage? I mean, you have right now an army of people who once upon a time were skilled workers in the factories, and right now you educate people at universities and they don't have factories or enterprises to work in,
Oh, okay.
So So basically that was wrong. I mean, to eliminate, for example, tariffs. I mean, you use tariffs to basically protect your own industry.
That's right.
From a hostile takeover.
Right.
And nothing short of hostile takeover took place because industries were destroyed on the basis that, for example, Chinese labor was much cheaper than American or Canadian or European labor, right?
Exactly.
So if you produce sneakers or TV sets or whatever, it was
won't
cheaper
sell,
in China.
Exactly.
So one would say, oh, well, consumers would benefit. Yes, but that would be short-term benefit, but the whole country would suffer. And then consumers are basically as well the ones who are working in factories. So you know, they would lose their job and they wouldn't be able to soon buy anything, you know. So basically, stupid way of thinking, you know. But as I said, if you employ stupid people, you get stupid decisions. It's very rarely that a stupid person makes right decision, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And
once upon a time, you know, it's sort of like a monkey. Ask them to write one of the Shakespeare's play, you know, or write something which Hemingway wrote. You know, ask a monkey, you know, to write that. I mean, you know, it couldn't, you know. So stupid person is not capable of smart decisions.
well, people are waiting for governments to feed them, to solve their problems. You know, they have no way of thinking, like you said. They don't think. They have no time to think. Our kids and young people, they have two jobs. They have to go to school under a lot of pressure. They, you know, in America, kids, you know how they work. They have a hamburger, they're driving, and they're putting cell phone on their ear, and they have two, three jobs, and they got to go to college and pay their bills. So this is the kind of life we have. The kid doesn't have time to think or talk to anybody. He just texts and he drives for hours and he listens to music. This is a kind of life new generation has. So we are hitting the straight to the wall, like you say, in 10 minutes.
That's why I'm giving only 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, you have a good point. Probably less than 20 years.
Yeah.
But I still think some part of the planet will survive and some humans will catch up and create a new humanity that they will do everything against what we are right now, and it's like they will try to get away from everything we did and create something new. And that's what we should do right now. We should do everything that we were not doing yesterday and change everything that anybody is doing in science, literature, in any form or shape, industry. We should not do the things the same anymore. Otherwise, we will.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
We have to form society outside of the society. In other words, society which is governed by different rules, and basically society which brings more and more people who think alike and basically spread the news and become a new society within the old society, and eventually hope that the old society would die out and the new society would eventually take over.
That's a good theory to go by, yeah, for future. Otherwise, the whole humanity would collapse. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Do you know, by the way, before we part, I would ask you a question. You know, very often on TV they advertise that we should clean the countertop of bike or couch, you know, spray with disinfectants.
Right.
So on. Yeah. Do you know how many bacteria and viruses and various cells are living in your body? If you would take one bucket and you would put your cells, and you would take another bucket and you would put the other cells which live in your body, how many cells would be in one bucket by the number, and how many cells in the other?
I wouldn't know. You're the scientist.
What do you think?
Cells of bacteria, you mean?
Well, it could be bacteria, it could be fungi, it could be some, you know,
living in our organs. Are you saying living our organisms?
Anywhere in our digestive system, on our skin, in our blood system, lymphatic system, and so on.
I would say if it's a bucket,
total.
I would say 5 times than regular cells.
Yes, it turns out that we don't know exactly. Estimate is that the number of cells is equal to number of cells which are in humans, or maybe even 10 times higher than in humans. So in other words, it could be between as many as our cells, or maybe even 10 times more than our cells.
So we live in a world of bacteria.
That's right. I mean, you know, humans, I think, are only a fraction of a % of total biomass of the Earth. and bacteria is, I think, 47% of virus.
Wow, this is interesting. So these bacteria can destroy humans too eventually.
Well, they are our ancestors. I mean, we have to learn, and I'm promoting in my papers, we have to learn how to live with bacteria and viruses in peaceful relationship. They are our ancestors, and on top of that, they are very important in our evolution and evolution of any higher organs.
Interesting.
So without them, we basically would not evolve, and without them, we actually wouldn't be healthy. So actually, they play a very important role, but that's probably a topic of another talk.
I know, this is end of 2 hours, and it was one of the best interviews I ever had. I thank you and really enjoyed
You're very welcome.
Talking to you, and I'm sure a lot of listeners would share this video and enjoy your topic, and we will share it on Facebook and on the websites, and we thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
And hope to see you again. Take care. Have a nice evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you. Take care.
Bye-bye.